Good day, students. Welcome to mathgotserved.com. In this clip, we're going to be going over how to identify ratios. Now, what is a ratio? A ratio is a comparison between two numbers. We're going to be applying that definition in comparing the objects that we have below. Okay, we have triangles and squares here. So let's see how we can compare them with one another using ratios. We're going to start by considering how the number of triangles compare with the number of squares. Okay, so we're going to write this using ratios. The ratio of triangles in red to squares in green is what? So what is the ratio of triangles to squares? Well, let's count the number of triangles that we have here. We have 1, 2, 3. We have 3 triangles. And how many squares do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 squares. All right. So what is the ratio of triangles to squares? The ratio of triangles to squares is the number of triangles, 3, to the number of squares, which is 4. Okay? Now, what does this mean? Well, let's write down what this means. This means that for every 3 triangles, what do we have? There are how many squares? Based on this ratio, for every 3 triangles, there are 4 squares. Okay? So that's how you can use ratios to compare the quantity between two numbers. Alrighty? Well, there's another way we can express or compare these two objects. We can do the reverse. Okay? How about we consider the ratio of squares to triangles? Let's take a look at that. The ratio of squares to triangles is what? What is the ratio of squares to triangles? Well, the ratio of squares to triangles, we already counted the number of squares and triangles we have. We know that there are 4 squares and 3 triangles. Okay, so the ratio of squares to triangles is 4 to 3. Okay, now what does this mean? If the ratio of squares to triangles is 4 to 3, let's write down what that means. This means that for every 4 squares, what do you have? For every 4 squares, there are 3 triangles. Okay? All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to express this ratio in 3 forms. Okay, this form that we have here is the word form for writing ratios. We also have a standard form and a fraction form. But before we do that, something that's very important that you want to keep in mind. What you want to keep in mind is that the order of ratios matter. Okay, the order matters. What comes first in a ratio is very important. All right, so for example, in this particular case, you will notice that 3 to 4 is not the same thing as 4 to 3. All right, so 3 to 4 is not the same as 4 to 3. So please pay close attention to the order when you're writing down a ratio. Now let's take a look at this scenario that we have here, and we're going to write it in 3 different forms. The form that we have up here is the word form. Okay, so let's write down the ratio. So in word form, so ratios in three forms. So the first form is the word form. And you write that as, let's use the first example, 3 to 4, okay? You write that as 3 to 4. All right, now how can we write this in standard form, 3 to 4? If we want to write this in standard form, what we're going to use is we're going to make use of one of the punctuation marks in English to write this in standard form. So in standard form, 3 to 4 can be written as 3 colon 4. Okay, so that's the standard form. And then lastly, the third form is known as the fraction form. How do we write this ratio, 3 to 4, in fraction form? The number that comes first basically is the numerator, okay? And then this 2 or colon is the division bar. And the number that comes after the colon or 2 is the denominator. All right, so these are the three different ways that you can write a ratio. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to test our knowledge, our ability to write down ratios in different forms. All right, so given this table, this is a task we're to accomplish. We're to fill in the table with the missing forms of ratios. Okay, all right, so let's start with the first row. The first row we have 5 to 6. 5 to 6 is the word form for writing ratios. What is 5 to 6 in standard form? 5 to 6 in standard form just involves writing these two numbers and replacing with this word 2 with colon. Okay, so it's going to be 5 to 6. That's the standard form. How do you write this as a fraction? The first number is the numerator divided by the second number goes in the denominator position. All right, let's go on to the second row. In the second row, we have a ratio given to us in standard form. How do we write it in word form? We'll write down the first word, which is 12. The first number is 12. We'll write 12 in word form. The colon is 2. And the second number is 13. 12 to 13 is how you write this ratio in word form. Okay? How about fraction form? The first number is the numerator divided by the second number, the denominator. All right, let's look at the third row. For row 3, we have a ratio in fraction form, 4 over 9. How do we write it in standard form? The numerator comes first, and then you have colon, the denominator comes next. How about in word form? You write this as 4 to 9. All right, so that's how you write ratios in word form, standard form, and fraction form. All right, we're gonna do more practice on identifying ratios in different forms, okay? So let's consider the following scenarios. It reads, a survey asked people what their favorite drink is. The results are given in the table to the right. So we have this table right here that tells us the results of the survey. Now this is your task. We're to identify the specified ratio. Identify the specified ratio in three forms. Okay? All right. So for the first question, what if you were to identify the ratio of Sprite to Fanta in three forms? Sprite to Fanta. All right. Let's start with the word form, and then we'll do standard form and fraction form. Okay, So Sprite to Fanta, let's do word form first. So for Sprite to Fanta, we're looking at 7 and 13. In word form, it's 7 to 13. Oh, let's write this in word form. So we have 7 to 13. All right, so that's it in word form. Now let's write it in standard form. If you want to write this in standard form, it's 7 colon 13. And if you want to write this in fraction form, it's 7. Remember, the number that comes first goes in the numerator over 13. The second number goes in the denominator position. All right, let's take a look at another example. What if the ratio is the ratio of Fanta to Coke? So the ratio of Fanta to Coke. All right, in word form, how many do we have? How many people preferred Fanta? 13. So we have 13 to the number of people that preferred Coke, 3. So this is word form. Okay. If we want to write it in standard form, it's going to be 13, the first number, colon 3. And then in fraction form is 13 divided by 3, or 13 over 3. All right, let's try another example. What if you were to compare Coke to all types of drink? How would that work? In word form, we need to have the number of Coke, which is 3 to all types. So what is all types? In order to do all types, we need to add all the numbers together, okay? So 7 plus 3 is 10. So we add 7, 3, and 13, okay? So 7 plus 3 is 10, and then we add on 13 to that. 10 plus 13 is 23. All right, so all types is going to be 23. Let's write that on the bottom. All types is the sum, which comes out to 23. All right, so the ratio of Coke to all types is 3 to what? 3 to 23. That's it in word form. How about if we want to write it in standard form? In standard form is going to be 3 colon 23. And then in fraction form is 3 over 23. All right, let's take a look at another example. What if we were to write down the ratio of Sprites to all types? What would that be? Sprites to all types. So for Sprites to all types, it's going to be the number of Sprite, which is, let's see, what's the number of Sprite? 7. So in word form, it's going to be 7 to the number of all types. Remember when we added them all together, it was 23. 7 to 23. Okay, if we want to write it in standard form, it's going to be 7 colon 23. And if we want to write it as a fraction, it's going to be 7 divided by 23, 7 over 23. Okay? All right, now let's consider a problem in paragraph format, okay? So in this question, consider the following scenario. There are 15 students in a class. 8 of them are boys and the rest are girls. Question, what is the ratio of girls to boys? So in order to write the ratio of girls to boys, we need to know how many boys and how many girls there are. Okay, so let's go ahead and write those down. The number of boys is 8. Okay, we have 8 boys. So how many girls do we have? Number of girls is going to be the total number of students minus the number of boys. Okay, so there are 15 students in all. If we subtract the number of boys, we'll get the number of girls. All right, so 15 minus 8 is 7. Okay, now let's go ahead and answer the problem. The ratio ratio, the ratio of, what does the question ask? The ratio of girls to boys. We're going to write it in all three forms, okay? In word form, is going to be girls is 7, 7 to boys is 8, okay? If we want to write it in standard form, it's going to be 7 colon 8. And if we want to write it in fraction form, it's going to be 7 over 8. All right, let's consider another story problem. A cup of trail mix has 4 cashews, 5 M&Ms, 3 raisins, and 6 almonds. Question: what is the ratio of M&Ms to the total pieces of items in the cup? Okay? All right, so in order for us to set up this ratio, we need two values. Okay, we need to know how many M&Ms there are and the total pieces of items in the cup. Alrighty, so the number of M&Ms is given by what? It's 5. There are 5 M&Ms. All right. How about the total pieces? Total pieces in the cup? Well, we have to add the number of different pieces that we have in the cup. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that calculation on the side. We have 4 cashews and 5 M&Ms, so 4 plus 5. That will give us 9. And then to this 9, we're going to add the number of raisins. There are 3 raisins, and that's 12. And then to this total, we're going to add the number of almonds. There are 6 almonds, so that's 18. So there are a total of 18 pieces of items in the cup. So total pieces is 18. All right. So the ratio of M&Ms to the total pieces in the cup, we're going to write it in 3 forms, okay? It's given by, in word form, it's 5 to 18, all right? So it's 5 to 18. And then in standard form, it's going to be the number 5 colon 18, and then in fraction form, the first number goes on top, 5, and then divided by the second number, 18. All right, so that's how you write ratios in multiple forms. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this presentation. We really appreciate it. If you found the contents of this tutorial helpful in your studies of ratios, to give us a thumbs up. Your positive feedback is very valuable to us. If you have any questions or comments or any special requests, just place it in the comment section below, and we'll be more than glad to respond. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for updates to other tutorials such as this. More resources can be found at mathgotserved.com. Thanks again for watching and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.